welcome to South Asia Today, a show that provides you the glimpses of South Asia. I'm your host Yeshi. Here are the headlines. One-third of Bangladesh affected by ongoing floods, millions displaced. Kashmiri activists thrashed and jailed for calling out Pakistan's occupation of region. And devotees in India celebrate Hindu Elephant God Festival amid coronavirus. Let's begin the show. On several occasions, Pakistan has been accused by Afghan administration of colluding with the Taliban. Kabul blames Islamabad for rising violence and instability in Afghanistan. Pakistan, on the other side, maintains that it wants peace at its western border. It supports the Afghan peace process and advocates ceasefire between the two warring sides. But that's its public face and stance. Privately, it has been holding talks and meetings with the Taliban despite Kabul's reservations. Recently, Pakistan Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi hosted a Taliban delegation in Islamabad. Have a look.
Amid stalled peace talks between the warring sides of Afghan government and the Taliban, Pakistan Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi hosted a 6-member Taliban delegation in Islamabad. The meeting came in line for further strengthening a relationship which many describes as unethical and suspicious. But this wasn't the first time. Pakistan, which Kabul administration accuses of sheltering militants and helping the Taliban with the war strategies and weaponry, has hosted top insurgents on more than one occasion. A similar meeting in October last year had been condemned by Kabul. While Pakistan's relations with the insurgents have come under international lens, Islamabad justifies it as an effort to persuade the Taliban for peace. It has even issued statements that appear harmless at the surface.
हमने अहाता किया कि अक्टूबर 2019 से लेकर अब तक क्या पेशरफ्त हुई है, कहां कामयाबियां हासिल हुई हैं और अभी भी अगर कोई पेचीदगियां हैं तो वो क्या हैं और उनका हल कैसे निकल सकता है। हमने जो आपस में तबादला ख्याल किया उससे मैं पुरुमीद हूं कि इंशाअल्लाह मुस्तकबिल करीब में मुश्किलात के बावजूद, और इसमें कोई शक नहीं कि स्पॉयलर्स मौजूद हैं, उसके बावजूद मैं पुरुमीद हूं कि रास्ता निकल सकता है। और मैंने देखा है कि उस रास्ते को हमवार करने के लिए ये ज़हनी तौर पर और कल्बी तौर पर मुझे तैयार और आमादा दिखाई देते हैं।
Its actions, however, have not been a reflection of its claims. Pakistan's role in providing safe havens to terrorists has been questioned by many countries across the world. Some observers have even held it responsible for the prolonged war in Afghanistan. They say that Pakistan doesn't want a peaceful and stable Afghanistan for its larger interest with its allies, and negotiation exercise is a deception. Pakistan might say that it has contributed to the success achieved in peace process, but international observers believe that it was the sustained US pressure, not Islamabad's meetings, that brought Taliban to the table. Taliban, on the other side, have intensified its violence across the country. Regular attacks have further hampered the peace process that suffered bottlenecks after disagreements cropped up over the release of last 320 prisoners. They are unabated. They have been killing civilians and government personnel alike. People narrating horrific tales has become an everyday incident.
हामी شدگی اون صدای موتور آمد پشت کلینیک و پشت دروازه اولی ما یک 4 دقیقه و 5 دقیقه چالان بود صدایش می آمد اولی بعد از همین 4-5 دقیقه دیگه انفجار شد دیگه نفهمیدیم نیمی حالت که شما میبینید نیمی حالت سی خانان کامل چپک شد موتور تخریب شد یک اعضای فامیل ما 3-4 زخمی شده.
Afghan administration recently announced that the talks between the two will resume in early September, a news that Taliban has denied. Taliban says it will move ahead only after the last prisoner among the remaining 320 is released. French and Australian governments have urged Kabul to not release the hardcore criminals who have killed their citizens. A mounting multi-pronged challenge has now besieged the decision-making bodies of Afghanistan. The peace process, which has made gains despite delays, has seemingly hit a roadblock with Kabul administration running out of time. And a chest-thumping Pakistan can do absolutely nothing to improve the situation.
Moving on. As floods continue to wreak havoc in South Asia, 1/3 of Bangladesh is now submerged deep underwater. Scores have lost their lives and millions others have been displaced as a result of a prolonged monsoon. According to the Weather Department, the situation will not change despite extensive evacuation and relief drives, as heavy rains are expected till early September.
Towns and villages in Bangladesh are flooded, and people are forced to wade through waist-high waters. Habitations are overwhelmed with water as incessant downpour has destroyed everything, from shelters to farming to livestock. People's calculations who prepare themselves in advance for the floods have gone wrong, as the monsoon spell has extended way beyond its expected phase. Thousands of optimistic Bangladeshis who believed that a brief spell could have been endured are now out of essentials. Even government relief hasn't reached the people in many areas.
বন্যায় আমরা অনেক কষ্টতে আছি। এক মাস যাবতে বাজার ঘাট করতে পারি না, এমনকি করতে পারি না, খাওয়া দাওয়া করতে পারি না, পড়ার বাচ্চা কাছে অনেক লেখাপড়া করাতে পারি না, অনেকে বাড়ি ঘর ছেড়ে চলে গেছে। আমরা অনেকে যাবতে অনেক কষ্টতে বাড়ি ঘরে।
As per the local media reports, around 170 people have died and millions have fled their homes. Around 17% of Bangladesh remains underwater throughout the year, which is needed for environmental balance in the country. But the annual flood increased the water level by 18%, thereby inundating 35% of the country. The issue resurfaces every year, but Dhaka hasn't been able to come up with a concrete and sustainable solution even now.
আবুর ডাবুর যাই হোক কিছু মতে যাই হোক খাইছি আর আবুর ডাবুর করছে বাড়ি ছেড়ে চলে গেছি পর আবার পানি কমছে আবার বাইকাইছি এখন আবার ওই পানি সেই পানি আবার পানি বাড়তে আছে
Adapting to annual floods has been the country's key strategy and a crucial part of its policy on disaster risk reduction, but an unexpected deluge fails its plans and models. People in parts of the country where the disaster has taken a heavy toll on lives and infrastructure say that they have never seen something like this year's floods.
হয়েছিল এই পর্যন্ত খুব কষ্ট করছি গরু বাছুরা যে জঙ্গলটা জাগাইছি খুব বেশি রকম কষ্ট হয়েছে আল্লাহ জীবনে দেখিনি এরকম কষ্ট আমার
Other parts of South Asia too have been severely affected by the torrential rains. Millions have been displaced. Rescue and relief operations are underway but have been able to achieve little success, as the phase is not over with prediction of more rain in the next few days, further dampening the spirit and hope of people.
Now we take a look at some happenings in Asia in a segment called Asia Watch.
China and the Netherlands should jointly uphold multilateralism and set an example for safeguarding free trade, ensuring mutual openness and advocating fair competition, visiting Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi said in The Hague, the Netherlands. He made the remarks while meeting with Dutch Foreign Minister Stef Blok on the second leg of his European tour. Noting that multilateralism is facing challenges, Wang said upholding multilateralism is a universal rule of the international community and a necessity for most countries, especially small and medium-sized countries, to survive and develop. China, he said, firmly supports multilateralism and stands ready to work with all countries, including the Netherlands, to practice multilateralism and safeguard it with concrete actions. Meanwhile, Wang called on China and the Netherlands to set an example for safeguarding free trade. Globalization represents an inevitable trend of human development and a manifestation of social progress, he said, adding that the Netherlands advocates free trade while China is also a beneficiary of free trade. The two countries should jointly promote the reform of the World Trade Organization so that the WTO will continue to play its role as a cornerstone of the free trade system. Also, China and the Netherlands should set an example for advocating fair competition. The two sides also had an in-depth exchange of views on international and regional issues of common concern. Foreign joint ventures in Shenzhen, South China's Guangdong province, time and again have proven the efficacy of the Guangdong-Hong Kong-Macau Greater Bay Area. Lufthansa Technik Shenzhen, a company established by Lufthansa Technik in Germany, and China Aviation Supplies Holding Company in Shenzhen in 2002, provides Chinese and Asia-Pacific Airlines with maintenance, repair, and overhaul services for aircraft parts, including modifications, spare unit supply, and engineering support.
We have been growing fast with the Chinese market since 2002, and right now we act with pretty much every airline in China. And 50% of our business is from international customers, mostly from Asia Pacific, but also from Europe or the United States. So I think also in future our customer base will focus on China and Asia Pacific.
Benjamin Shedell, CEO of LT, has reviewed the company's steady development over the past decade in an interview with China Central Television recently. The company has been growing very fast together with aviation industry. Shedell said there were about 250 aircraft in China when the company started in 2002, and now it's about 4,000, with China soon to become the biggest aviation market in the world. Hiromu Inada, 87, already has a certificate on his wall that confirms his status as the world's oldest Ironman, but the Japanese man is still pounding away on his training bike and hopes to continue competing into his 90s. In 2018, at the age of 85 years and 328 days, Inada went to Kailua Kona in Hawaii and set a new mark for the oldest person to complete the World Championship Ironman, a feat beyond most people decades younger than him. The cancellation of his October's Ironman because of the coronavirus pandemic has not dulled his ambition, and Inada is maintaining his grueling training schedule for a return to Hawaii next year. An Ironman race is widely considered one of the toughest endurance events in sport, requiring athletes to swim 3.86 km, bike 180.25 km, and run a full 42.19 km marathon. Slender and tanned from hours of training outside, Inada looks like a man who has been competing in endurance tests all his life, but he only took up the sport in retirement. After working for public broadcaster NHK, Inada began swimming and running and bought a bike at age 69. Inada sees the extended lead into his next trip to Hawaii as an opportunity to rest a sore knee and tweak his preparation technique.
Moving on, a growing anti-establishment resistance in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir has unnerved Islamabad. It has unleashed barbarity to muzzle the voices of dissenters. Tanveer Ahmed, an activist and journalist from Dadiyal city in POK, was brutally thrashed and jailed for daring to call Pakistan an occupier and removing Pakistan's flag from a public place. And this wasn't an isolated incident. Anybody who has dared raise his voice against the Pakistani discrimination and human rights violations in the region has been subjected to violence, imprisonment, exile, or even death in some cases.
While these few-second visuals are enough to shake human conscience, such scenes have become an everyday phenomenon in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Tanveer Ahmed, a journalist and activist, was dragged on for several meters before being dumped in a police vehicle. Tanveer was on a hunger strike for days and had demanded local authorities to remove Pakistani flags from a public place, failing in which he himself removed the flags. In a secretly filmed video inside his detainee room, Tanveer said that police had brutally beaten him for daring to stand against what was wrong.
Police ने हाँ जी रोड पर मारी है बाद जी थे तो थाने जी उन्हें रास्ते उठा भी मारने रहे रास्ते भी मारने रहे मुकेशों के मारने रहे और इतना भी जिला इतना लगते हैं इतना भी मारने रहे.
The incident has sparked outrage across the Pakistan-occupied region, and a number of demonstrations have been carried out demanding his release. The protests are gaining momentum with people from all sections of society joining in. The people say police also arrested the youths who had raised slogans against Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan. Exiled Kashmiri leaders and activists are mulling to hold demonstrations across Europe against police high-handedness, which they say has become a regular phenomenon in the region.
It's high time that the authorities in Pakistan as well as in Muzaffarabad understand and realize the dangers that accompany such acts of terror. If these acts are not remedied, then things may escalate. We are in the process of consultation at the moment to organize a series of demonstrations across the globe to condemn these police excesses. If it is not addressed, then things will escalate and the responsibility would lie on the people on the government of Muzaffarabad as well as the responsible people of Pakistan.
Pakistan's insecurity against Kashmiri activists, both political and social, has manifested in its extrajudicial operations over the years. It has preemptively targeted and suppressed the voices demanding rights and freedom in its illegally occupied regions of POK and Gilgit-Baltistan. Baba Jan is one among the hundreds who have been targeted by Pakistani forces. He has been languishing in jail for years now. Tanveer Ahmed too has joined the same list. Locals fear, even if he is released in some days, the establishment will continue to haunt him for years through its suppressive political instruments.
रिहा करो, कबीर को रिहा करो, कबीर को रिहा करो, करवीर को रिहा करो, करवीर को रिहा करो.
Next, we move to India to witness this year's celebrations of Ganesh Chaturthi, the most awaited festival in the southern and western parts of the country. Celebrated in the honor of Hindu Lord Ganesha, also regarded as the god of wisdom, the festival is a complete mixture of culture, history and vibrancy. Though the festival is observed in a grand manner, but this year amid the pandemic, its celebrations were kept a low-key affair.
Huge idols of Lord Ganesha, crowded tents and chants of Ganpati Bappa Moria reverberating in the air. All this marks the celebrations of the most resplendent festivals of Ganesh Chaturthi in India. Every year, people set up huge pandals, a temporary shed where they install a beautifully crafted idol of the elephant-headed god. But this time, due to coronavirus outbreak, they were erected at very few places and allowed the entry of limited devotees to avoid the spread of infection. In western Mumbai city, a religious body like every year erected a pandal but didn't compromise with safety. It installed sanitizer and temperature measuring machines and urged people to properly follow the social distancing norms.
ज़्यादा भीड़ न होने देने की जो तैयारियां है वो मंडल की तरफ से की गई है. मंडल की तरफ से इस बार 4 फीट के गणपति की स्थापना यहाँ की गई है और ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग से दर्शन लेने की कोशिश मंडल की हो चुकी है और इसे भी हम मंडल की तरफ से आह्वान कर रहे हैं कि आप घर बैठ के एकदम सुरक्षित रीत्या गणपति का दर्शन लीजिए.
Spreading awareness about the pandemic ruled the Ganpati celebrations this year. In Nagpur city of Maharashtra, devotees designed the pandal in the form of a COVID-19 facility. Wearing a white coat like that of a doctor and armed with stethoscope, the statue of Ganesha became the center of attention for many visitors.
ये तो पूरे विश्व में अशांति फैली हुई है कोरोना की महामारी से. बहुत लोग कोरोना बाधित है, बहुत लोगों का मृत्यु हो गया है. वैसे महाराष्ट्र में भी ज़्यादा तादाद में लोग बढ़ रहे हैं. हमने सोचा कि अभी इस बार गणेशोत्सव ऐसा मनाना चाहिए कि कोरोना का सावट होने की वजह से क्यों ना अपन ने एक हॉस्पिटल कोरोना केयर हॉस्पिटल बनाया जाए ताकि लोगों को यहाँ पे आने के बाद में कुछ मार्गदर्शन मिले.
Taking a step towards environment protection, people adopted for eco-friendly Ganesha idols. In Ludhiana, a chocolate Ganesha, which was made out of 40 kilograms of Belgian chocolate, drew many eyeballs. The idol was created in 10 days with the collective effort of 10 chefs and looked simply marvelous.
Because of coronavirus, we have reduced the size of our celebrations. Last year we made 80 kgs of chocolate Ganesha. This year we made 40 kgs. But we wanted to make sure that we continue the celebration.
The festivities of Ganesh Chaturthi go on for 10 days. And on the last day, the idols are taken through the streets in a procession accompanied by dancing and singing. and later immersed in a river or the sea.
It's time for me to wrap up today's episode. We will be back next week at the same time. This is Yeshi signing off from the entire production team of South Asia Today. Goodbye and take care.